Welcome to A Day in Her Life. I'm your host, Ellie Rinnick, and I am fascinated by how other women make their days work. I am so thrilled Tracy Skelly is joining us to discuss her days this week. Tracy is the founder of Little Cocoa Bean Co., a feeding and baby care business with the Tot Cafe in Jamaica Plain and the Tot Shop in the Seaport. Tracy is also a mom of 2 young kids and 2 bonus sons. I loved hearing from Tracy how her days start really early and how she and her husband balance the pre- and post-drop-off schedules. Tracy shares how self-care has taken a different look now that she is an entrepreneur, and how working for herself has given her a sense of satisfaction and purpose that she hadn't had previously. I loved hearing how motherhood changed Tracy's perspective, how that revelation led to founding the Little Cocoa Bean Co., and how helping others is central to the mission of her business. This episode is such a fun listen, and I absolutely loved hearing from Tracy about her days. You can follow Little Cocoa Bean Co. on Instagram and TikTok at Little Cocoa Bean Co. Cocoa is spelled C-O-C-O-A, or littlecocoabeanco.com. If you're local, Little Cocoa Bean Co. is celebrating their 1-year anniversary this weekend at the Tot Shop with a winter wonderland. You can check out the details on their Instagram. I'll be there. And thank you for spending a part of a day in your life with A Day in Her Life. I am so thrilled that you're here. And if you haven't yet, I would be forever grateful if you would drop a review wherever you're listening. Ratings are a huge help to podcasts, and the more the merrier. You can also get more A Day in Her Life on Instagram at A Day in Her Life Pod and through our newsletter, which you can find on our Instagram or on our website, adayinherlife.com. Thank you, as always, for being here. This podcast started on a whim, and I am so excited for the fun we have planned in 2024 and beyond. And since we don't have any sponsors on A Day in Her Life, I love to feature an organization doing good. This week, Tracy suggested St. Mary's Center for Women and Children in Dorchester. Grounded in social justice, St. Mary's empowers families to achieve emotional stability and economic independence through education, workforce development, and permanent housing. If you're looking for a way to give back this holiday season, St. Mary's has a way for you to fulfill some holiday wishes for their families on their website, stmaryscenterma.org. You don't have to be local to participate and support this organization helping women and families. Thank you for the suggestion, Tracy. And with that, let's have some fun. Awesome. Welcome to A Day in Her Life podcast. Today, Tracy Skelly, founder and owner of the Little Cocoa Bean Co., is joining us today to discuss her days. Hi, Tracy. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you for having me.
So let's jump right in. If you wouldn't mind, could you set the scene for us and fill us in on where you live, what you do, what your family looks like?
Yeah. So I'm Tracy Skelly. I'm the founder and CEO of the Little Cocoa Bean Company. I'm a Boston resident. I specifically live in Roslindale. I love Roslindale. And I am mom to a feisty 5-year-old little girl, a almost 8-month-old little boy, and then 2 bonus sons. They are twins, and they are 14 and freshmen in high school.
Ooh, it's a fun age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Exodus Bagels in Roslindale?
Yeah, that's
so
yeah.
good.
Have I ever been to Exodus Bagels? The question is, have I been to Exodus Bagels yet
Today.
this week? Like today, actually.
I went yesterday, and they're so good.
Yeah. So good.
So good. So Tracy, would you mind telling us a little bit about Little Cocoa Bean Co. and what services and what that looks like, so that for those that aren't familiar?
Sure. It's a baby care and feeding business. We own and operate the Tot Cafe, which is in Jamaica Plain. It's a cafe-style eatery, much like you would expect, sort of like your traditional sort of chic cafe to like look like and feel. It feels like that. It looks like that, except the one unique or a couple unique things about it is that we have a play space inside. It is definitely Montessori inspired, spikes on sort of exploration, creativity. It's not like your traditional sort of plastic playhouse. It sits in the center of our cafe. And then additionally, our menu is really for children. We have tot-sized portions, so toddler-sized portions for most of our meals. We do have like big kid meals that we also offer, which could be great for parents or truly older kids. But we are really focused on nutrition, exposing kids to really healthy foods early on, cultural foods early on, and ensuring that kids can find food that they like, but that's also good for them. So that's all happening at the cafe. And then we also own and operate the Tot Shop in the Seaport, which, unlike our cafe, is just a tiny little place where people can find gifts for babies and toddlers. Many of the items that we source for this particular store are the businesses are owned or operated by BIPOC individuals and or women. And so we really try to diversify sort of the owners or the business owners whose products we carry in the store.
Awesome. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind, could you take us through a day in your life? So starting in the mornings, from getting up to getting the kids and yourself out the door, what does your day look like?
Oh, goodness. Let's start at nighttime. Well, it's not nighttime, but my daughter does joke that like when she wakes up as early as I do, that it is still nighttime. And we're like, well, that's how early mommy has to get up to get everything done. So I will typically get up in the morning. Sometime if I'm dealing with like a particularly like large spike in anxiety, around 4:30 in the morning. If I sleep well, I'll get up around 5:30. But I truly wake up and get out of bed between 4:30 and 5:30 every morning. I love the house being quiet in the morning. I love, getting a cup of coffee, which is typically what I do. I'll wash out my kid's lunchbox, do sort of like a morning routine, setting the stage for everything that will happen once the kids get up in the morning. My daughter, I don't know, she's got like this, I don't know, sense that I'm like not in bed. And so I'll usually get maybe 30, 40 minutes of child-free time. And then she comes like running out of her bed, my 5-year-old, in the morning. And once she does that, everybody's up because she's loud. She wants everybody to be up, as much as we tell her not to wake up the baby or not to wake up her brothers or not to wake up dad or whatever it is. My husband is usually gone by that point, but on a day like today, which is a holiday, he's not. She wakes everybody up, even when she's trying to whisper. So everyone's up, we're brushing teeth, we're washing faces, we're eating breakfast, getting backpacks packed, throw all the kids in the car by 7:15, then we're off to school. We do all the drop-offs. The baby stays home right now. I have a mix of like my mom, my mother-in-law, and my aunt who watch the baby for me. I'm trying to get to about a year of this free family care. We'll see how that goes, but we're at 8 months and it's been great. Once the kids are dropped off, I typically come back home and then I get ready for the day. And that's everything from me like checking some of the first emails that I'll check once I get home, getting myself ready to go. And then I'm out of the house usually by 9, sometimes depending on if I have a meeting a little bit earlier than that. On an average day, I'll stop by the Tot Cafe. I'll check in on inventory. How are we doing on certain items? And do we need to order anything? Are we out of anything? Is there a menu change that has happened? I will make sure that the freezers are stocked with baby food. We make baby food in-house, so fresh, locally sourced, usually farm fresh ingredients. We make it, we stock it, we sell it from the cafe. So making sure the freezers are all stocked with baby food. And then some days, like I'm there at the Tot Cafe and I'm behind the counter and you can find me there. And some days I'm just popping in, making sure everything's ready to go. And then I head over to the Seaport. I check to see that our shelves are stocked. I'm going to lift up my computer. You can see we've got new inventory in. So I will do my little wheelbarrow thing and bring over the new inventory, stock the shelves, make sure we have all of the SKUs in our computer system. And I will either stay here and again, be the face behind the counter, or I'll wait for an employee to get here who will do that. And then if it is a day where I'm not working behind the counter, sometimes I'm meeting with people in person. Sometimes I am going to our kitchen and preparing meals for the cafe. Sometimes I'm working from the actual JP Tot Cafe or another cafe, just getting work done. Because sometimes when I'm in the actual cafe, people have a lot of questions for
Everyone
me.
wants
I'm
to stop
answering
and chat.
questions. Everyone wants to stop and chat. Or my employees are like, finally, she's here. Let me ask her all the questions that I've had, which, because I'm running most of the time. So in fairness, it is an opportunity for us to get caught up. And so sometimes I have to work off site in order to get certain things done. But my day typically looks like that. And if I'm working at the Tot Cafe, I'm there on site until at least 6, which is when we close. And then if I'm in Seaport, I would work here until about 7, which is when we close here. And then if I'm working off site, I typically don't leave my computer until about 6. My husband does all the pickup stuff. And then by the time I get home, if he's had a pretty, quote, easy after school time, the kids will be in pajamas already. They would have eaten already. And we kind of just spend the evening together going over how their day was. We might watch a little show together. We might put together some Legos. We might do something together as a family. Then I'll put the kids down to bed. My daughter will come out of her room about 25 times. And then when she's finally done coming out of her room, my husband and I will catch up. But I will also usually have my laptop out, answering new emails that have come in, and then start the day over again. So that's a day in my life.
And what time so you do the morning piece and your husband does the post pickup piece, it sounds like.
That's right.
How did you land on that for your family, or kind of what factors led to that decision? Or just like naturally evolved that way?
Some of it just structurally is what works for us because of our careers. And historically, my husband has had an earlier start to his day, but an earlier end to his day than I have. Even before we had kids, although I met him when my stepsons were toddlers. We were married when they were 4. Yeah. Wow.
Gotcha.
It's been a long time. So it's just always sort of been that way, that he starts the day early and then he ends earlier. So he's always done kind of after school, after work pickup. But I always have ended my day much later. And so I usually do the morning sort of stuff.
Gotcha.
And it just, again, I think it's more structural than anything. And when we've had to make adjustments, we can make adjustments. We both have a degree of flexibility in our careers, even before I was working for myself, that would allow us to shift when needed. And then we have a pretty decent support system. Most of my family doesn't live here, but we have enough people between my in-laws and a couple of family members of mine that live in Boston that we've had enough support when needed.
Gotcha. Around what time would you say you go to bed?
Well, it depends. Some weeks when I'm really tired, going to bed looks like passing out on my bed, full clothes on, baby like on my arm, like 8:00. But when it's sort of planned, when I actually have the energy to sit with my husband and talk, because that's the one thing I think that gets really hard is the marriage time.
Yep.
I try to not completely fall asleep when I'm putting the kids just to bed. And we don't necessarily, except for the baby, my daughter is very sleep trained. We focused on that when she was little. It wasn't painful. I don't really believe in the cry it out business, but for us. But we did get her into a routine pretty early on. So she goes to bed in her room. But with baby, because he's little, and when she was that little, we definitely had her close to us, and we helped her soothe herself to sleep. And he's still in that phase. So I try not to fall asleep while he's falling asleep in the evening, just because I do want to put the same effort, or at least some effort, into my marriage and my relationship and that, lifetime. But so when I can make that happen, I will go to bed around 10.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's such a balance, because I too am an earlier to bed. I would like to be an earlier to bed person, but when my husband, he's a later to bed person. And so sometimes that's the only time is later than I would like. That brings me to my next question then, Tracy. How do you make time for relationships with friends during the day or during a week?
It's really challenging. I think I'd love to talk to a mom that's doing this well.
Yeah, same. This is why I ask.
And get some advice. But here's what I will say. A lot of my friends are in the same stage of life.
Mm.
Because of that, I think we all give each other a ton of grace. We're all super understanding because we know like some days like your text message is going to go unanswered. Some days we might want to get together and then the kids might get sick, right? And so I think we all give each other a ton of grace. But what I'll do when I can is, truly schedule time with my friends and then try, if possible, to really, really make it work. Even when I'm feeling tired, I never regret it. I will say sometimes I dread, at the end of a long day, maybe going out to dinner or whatever it is, but I never regret once I do it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is during like what would be considered downtime. So my commute to work, my commute from work, like the commute especially, I am almost always going through my list of people to call. Call my mom, call my brother, call my bestie, I call all my people during my commutes. And that's kind of how it works.
That's a great idea. And similarly, how do you make time for your husband and your relationship with him during the week or a given day?
Admittedly, it's truly the thing that has taken a back seat during this stage. I've been married going on in February 10 years, and my husband and I spent the first 5 without at least the kids we didn't share. My stepsons live primarily with their mom, but they spend part of the week and every other weekend with us. So we had a good number of years. We had 5 years where we had solo days, where we took solo trips, where, there was time to really sort of nurture the marriage and the relationship. And I'm really grateful for those times because I think it's made our foundation stronger during this time where it's been hard to do it. We're both so tired by the end of the day. We're ships passing in the night. We spend most of the day texting each other like logistics. And so it's hard, like even thinking about like, conversations that we've recently had around like, do we celebrate our anniversary? It feels like an inconvenient, we're going over like, well, that seems like a challenging time to do that because this thing is happening and the kids have this and this is happening. And it's like, wait a second, we're literally like not even thinking about pausing to celebrate our 10-year anniversary because logistically it's not going to necessarily work out with the kids' schedules and all the, and work and the business and, all the things. But I think we will. But it's hard. It's hard. This stage of marriage is, it's a partnership. I'm so grateful. I have a really strong partner in parenting, but I would be lying if I told you I was a good wife right now.
Yeah, it's such a challenging phase, the like little kid. It's physical, it's emotional, it's time consuming, it's all of those things.
Yep.
What do you do during the day for yourself? What does your version of self-care look like that you make time for during your day?
It's funny. I don't need much. For me, it looks like a nice cup of coffee, like from a cafe that I really like, or like making, using the good beans at home that I got from a, trip a year ago to Costa Rica. Like it's like little things like that for me. And I think that's because I work for myself. Entrepreneurship is so unbelievably challenging. But spiritually, I feel like I'm being fed in a very different way because I am dedicating my whole self to this gift, this vision, this dream I had. And so when I think of self-care, I actually need a little less than I did at one point because I feel like just like working towards like realizing this dream is like a bit of self-care. It has been. It's been like, again, feeding me spiritually. And so I feel less empty than I once did, making 3-4 times as much, but in service to someone else and their dreams and their goal.
That's so cool. I love how you said that. Could you tell us a little bit about how you did come into starting Little Cocoa Bean Co. and kind of that journey, what that looked like for you?
Yeah, it's funny. Anytime I get asked this question, like there are different parts of that time period that bubble to the surface, whether it's like feeling like what I was feeding my daughter really felt like something new and different and unique, and it shouldn't be that way, considering like the foods that I was feeding her are absolutely, like, if you look at the world at large, not unique or different in any way. I was feeding her like global staples.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means here in the US is something, it's just interesting, because if I say cassava, for example, which was one of her first foods, to anyone like outside of the US, or anyone even inside of the US with a cultural background that isn't sort of European, cassava's like, yeah, everybody eats it.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about this squash that in Panama we call chocho. It's a chayote, but it's called, I Googled it at one point, and there are like dozens of names for this one little squash, and it's eaten across the globe. I mean, Asia, Africa, Central America, I mean, everywhere. And there's a different name for it in every place, but this squash is like very much a part of the average diet around the world. It's not in the US, or at least it doesn't bubble up as like a typical, food that you would feed your kid. So lots of times that part of the story comes up. Sometimes it's part of the story that, is just me feeling like I had been doing this thing and I had been making these foods. People started asking me for the foods. And then it sort of became like this business that wasn't meant to be a business. And that is part of the story. That is actually what happened. But I also think when you talk about day in her life, I also think there's this part of the story that I don't talk about often. It doesn't come up all that often. But when I think about kind of how you interview moms and what you talk about, for me, I had just had a baby. And I became a first-time biological mom, which created a degree of understanding for me that I hadn't had before. I describe it as, the scales falling off of your eyes, like you seeing something that you hadn't seen before, you experiencing something that you hadn't experienced before, that sort of it changes you for life. And when I brought this life into the world, one of the things that happened, that often happens now that I know other moms and new moms, and I ask all the time, like, one of the things that happens is all the stuff that mattered before, not all the stuff, but a lot of the stuff that mattered before matters so much less, if not at all. Or some of the things you used to do and spend your time and your energy and your money on, you almost like resent that thing for trying to take energy and time and money and whatever from your baby, which is where you want to spend all of that stuff on. Like, you want to spend all your energy, your creativity, your all of that on this child, or on the world that this child will inherit, right? And so all of a sudden I had this baby, and I couldn't believe that I was spending my time at my job doing the like mundane, meaningless money making, which was fine, but like, really, like, this is how I'm spending my time? Like, I'm not with my baby because I'm coming here to do what? And so my job, like the job just, I don't know, it changed for me. I started looking at it differently. I started looking at just like how I want to spend my time. And I wanted to spend my time doing something meaningful, not just for my family, but for the world. And so then that's when I started volunteering more. And then I raised my hand to create this citywide baby shower in 2019, Mother's Day of 2019. I worked with my church to host a citywide baby shower. We had over 1,000 participants receive baby care items. And these were income constrained moms. These were moms who may not otherwise be getting aid to purchase some of the things that they needed to care for their babies. And it was amazing. And I got a bug. I'm like, I want to help more moms. I want to be focusing on like, health and resources and community and togetherness for parents, for moms. And so that's what I did.
I love that. Working for yourself and being an entrepreneur, how have you found a peer group of women to go to for advice?
I think there are a lot of people that I go to and for different pieces of advice. So, I talk to a lot of other business owners for just like straight up like business advice. So right next door to the Tot Shop is Shit That I Knit. When I've run into the founder, Christina, we chatted up and we've talked about like summer slowdowns, for example. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize the summer slowdown was a thing. Apparently it's a thing in business for a lot of businesses. I imagine like there are certain businesses that see a ramp up in the summer. My business experienced a slowdown during the summer. People were all of a sudden outside. People were traveling with their kids. It is my very first year. December will be our very first year owning and operating the Tot Cafe. And I did not realize that the warm months would mean that I wouldn't see as much traffic as I did when we opened. Christina, who has a knitting business with knit caps and mittens and things, very much understands, getting a business to survive during months where like you're the thing you are selling. And in our case, it's like, safe indoor space to take your kid, where you're not getting as much traffic. So I can talk to other business owners about like business related things. And I do seek out primarily women in business, but not specifically, not always. I always think it's helpful to talk to other moms in business. But then there are some other things that I need sometimes. I'll talk to my husband about certain things related to my business. I'll talk to my mom and my aunts and other women that I am seeking sort of like wisdom from, not even specifically related to entrepreneurship or business, but just like how to make wise decisions while also being a business owner. And then spiritually, like I think there are some women moms in particular, who also understand from a faith perspective, what are some decisions that I should be considering as a business owner. So I can give you an example, when it comes to hiring and firing, sometimes things come up where someone's performance, in a lot of cases where places where I've worked, like they probably would have been fired, 10 mistakes ago. But I often try coaching. I often try grace. I often try some other things before, if it's not egregious, before things like letting people go, because, I think that that's what it should look like.
Mm-hmm.
There's other moms employing moms. There's other humans employing humans, that sometimes people need a little bit of grace. Sometimes they need a little bit of understanding and empathy. And so, I may not seek out another like business that like is a hardcore business owner that's like grown this, like, and maybe I should, this multi-gajillion dollar business. But I do think we're in an age and stage where we need to start treating other people the way that we want to be treated. And I'm trying so hard in this business to do that.
I love that. And I love that you specifically call that out, because I think it's so important. How do you stay organized? So for both the business and for the family, how do you stay organized? You've got a lot going on.
And a lot of things falling through the cracks, Ellie. A lot of things falling through the cracks. Like, I do the best I can. I split the load between my husband and myself, but he's like, because I've decided to work for myself, he's working a lot harder and a lot more than he used to. And so we kind of try to divide and conquer the like things we have to remember, like sign up for camp. Like, who signs up for camp in November? But I definitely missed the deadline.
I just got an email about spring soccer. I was like, fall soccer's not even over.
What is happening? And for all of you moms that are on it, can you guys slow down so the world will reset and realize like we don't need to be signing up for camp in November? But I try my best to like keep my lists but a lot of it is triaging. We address things that are bleeding out, that are absolutely essential first. And then if we get the luxury of being able to address other things, then we do. I get a lot of reminders. I miss a lot of stuff. And it's because if it's not essential, it oftentimes has to go beneath, in back of things that are absolutely essential. So I don't know. I use a lot of lists. My calendar, like my calendar runs my day. I put everything in that calendar, everything from like text your husband the following at this, like to sign up for lunch at this time on this day. So my calendar, but yeah, I'm missing a lot of stuff.
In that vein, though, what is a ball that you are consciously letting drop, or something that you're consciously deprioritizing right now just because it doesn't fit in your days?
Oh, this is a hard one. There are probably some social relationships that are a little like that are like a degree or two removed from my sort of inner circle
Mm-hmm.
that I've just not had as much time on, to nurture those relationships in this stage. And part of my belief with friendships is that if you guys were truly connected, you'll likely come through this phase
Mm-hmm.
excited to reconnect, excited to catch up and see how things have gone. But I don't have the bandwidth to manage the truly like we've talked about it. Like if I don't have the time to nurture my marriage, I don't have a lot of time for networking. I don't have a lot of time for like acquaintance, like managing and nurturing like acquaintance relationships, with the hope that maybe one day we'll become closer or like mutually we'll need each other one day. Like I don't have a ton of time for that. So that's one thing that I'm definitely letting fall through the cracks. And then the other thing is I used to volunteer a ton. I've spent my life like volunteering my time. Now I try to do more of the service through the business. That way I can sort of fold it in because I just don't have the hours in the day to give away.
I like how you said that as the service, folding it into the service through the business as you can right now in this moment. And then Tracy, how do you make time for creativity during your day?
I love this question. I love this question because I think in some ways we all just like, I don't know, being creative, giving life to our thoughts, like I think it's just like another birth, like like
Mm-hmm.
another birth experience, like all the good things about the birth experience. And so it brings me such joy and energy being creative. And so lots of times I can only do that when I have quiet moments. But those quiet moments don't have to be lengthy. Sometimes it's like while I'm in the shower. Sometimes it's that quiet time when I come downstairs and the house isn't like no one else is awake and I'm sitting and I'm waiting for the coffee to fill in the coffee pot, or I'm washing dishes. Sometimes it's on a drive where I'm not listening to music. I'm not talking to anybody. Like it's just silence. And those are the times where I get some creative ideas. Sometimes it's talking to a colleague or a friend or an employee. I have some rock star employees, some brand new ones, but then also a couple that have been with me for a while now. And sometimes they'll just get creative ideas. And then we just find ourselves an hour later, talking through like, okay, how do we do this thing? And when do we do this thing? And let's talk through like how it could look and what we need to do. And so again, I think kind of like the self-care thing, this business itself, I mean, there are some day-to-day like operational things, tasks that are not at all about creating anything. When I do payroll or whatever it is, it's like these are like not exciting things to do. But in general, I get to spend most of my day on creation, on figuring out ways to develop programming that's going to be meaningful, figuring out ways to really bring this community to JP and other neighborhoods that we've asked to be in, right? How do you make a calming space, like in a retail space, a space that feels, it's got a lot of stuff, it's got a lot of color, it's got, wall-to-wall items, but how do you make this feel like a peaceful space for people who walk in? So like, I don't know, I feel like I spend my entire day, most of my days on creating things, and it's just so satisfying.
I love that. I love also the variation in how people respond to the question, because creativity looks so different to other people. But I feel like sometimes you look at your day and you're like, it's not creative. But like I talked to someone, the episode that's coming out this week, she's like, problem solving is my creativity. And I just love how there's different flavors of that.
I completely agree.
Tracy, where can people learn more about you and follow you and Little Cocoa Bean Co.?
Yeah, so we have a social media presence, so you can on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Our handle is at Little Cocoa Bean Co. And that's COCOA, but I imagine there will be a pop-up somewhere at Little Cocoa Bean Co. And then you can also visit our website, www.littlecocoabeanco.com. And then you, of course, if you're in the Boston area, you can pop into one of our shops and see for yourself what it's all about. Yeah, just excited to meet other moms and dads and caregivers. And yeah, if you have any other questions, you can DM me. I do see some of our social media messages, and or send an email through our website.
Awesome. And Tracy, what is your favorite part of a day in your life?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think my favorite part of the day is the end of the day when I'm with my babies and my husband, and we're going over our favorite parts of our day. And yeah, I like reflecting on the things that went well during the day for myself. And I like hearing what my family thinks went well. And it's kind of chaotic part of the day, like that time of day. But at the same time, it's like a moment we slow down and kind of check in with each other. And I love that.
That's awesome. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. It was so nice to connect and learn from you about your days.
Thank you, Ellie.